If Bitcoin goes up in dollar terms, I agree with you. You just earn more fiat if you're just going to sell Bitcoin. But let's say that Bitcoin goes up massively versus oil or uranium or natural gas, then maybe if you've accumulated enough Bitcoin, you can actually go and buy a power plant on the cheap. I don't know. I believe we can get to $1 million end of the cycle. $1 million.
So why do you believe that we can see like over 10x?
Because the amount of money that's going to be printed is going to be absolutely insane, as every government around the world does the same thing, which is print money to make my people feel happy because the global growth is slow. I think that DeFi will eventually become much bigger than CeFi just because it's easier to onboard more people. Once people understand, oh, well, I guess open up my browser, connect my wallet, and now I have all these types of financial products. That for some people is like revolutionary because they don't have a bank account, or they have very, very limited banking services, or the banks that they have are very, very corrupt. And so I think that DeFi will get the long tail of users. Maybe it's not going to be the most used thing in like America or Western Europe when you have a banking system that, for the most part works, but for large parts of the world, they don't have that. And so DeFi is, an improvement over the thing that they have. So South Korea is the biggest trading market for crypto. South Korean traders on a per trader basis are the most active. So that's probably one end of the spectrum. And then you see a lot of activity in places like Turkey, in the Philippines. I haven't been in the Philippines recently, but I know that they use a lot of crypto. A lot of NFTs are bought and sold in like Thailand and Indonesia. And there's lots of developers in Vietnam. So there's lots of interesting things going on, especially in the Asia Pacific region where I spend most of my time. And what's really interesting about Argentina is the first time I went there in 2018, the peso to the dollar was about, I think, 50 or 30 pesos to the dollar. Now it's 1,300 pesos to the dollar. But the ATMs still only give you 40,000 pesos maximum, which now is 40 US dollars. And they charge like a $7 fee. So you can't actually use cash in Argentina to do anything because the banks make it very difficult to use it. So what do people do? They use USDT and Tether. So it's very interesting. I paid for, my house, my guide, everything in Tether, just, sending people money on either the Tron or ERC20 networks. So I think crypto solves a problem that they have. They have a messed up currency. Lots of inflation, and so the population has gravitated to using a crypto solution. So I think at the end of the day, the US economy is very strong. The government's spending a lot of money, and the Fed wants to cut rates while the government is spending all this money. It doesn't make any sense. And so I think it's very inflationary. I think the market's going to realize that. And then when that happens, bond yields, especially 10-year treasury bond yields, will rise, and that'll cause a short-term market correction. Also, I believe that, reducing the differential between dollar rate and the yen rate will cause the yen to strengthen. We saw the yen carry trade unwind a few months ago in late July, early August, and with that impact on financial markets, as the Fed cuts rates, yen strengthens. That's negative for financial markets. Well, I think they've gone down a bit, but now if you can invest in treasury bills, it used to yield 5.5%. Now they yield, 5 to 4%, right? So if that keeps going down, then everyone who's earning all this money just sitting on bonds is going to have to do something with it. And that's something I think will be partially crypto, maybe gold, maybe real estate. And so as these assets are not earning this income, they're going to move out into other assets of fixed supply, like crypto. I think a lot of the ETF flows were driven by hedge funds like Millennium, who are putting on a basis trade. So they buy the ETF and they sell the futures contract on the CME. We'll see if their holdings change in the next disclosures, and I think it's a 13F by the SEC, and whether or not these funds have decreased their exposure because the basis or the interest rate has gone down on these trades. And that will reveal what the true demand is for these products. I think it's TBD right now, but over time, as a marketing machine kicks in for BlackRock and these large financial institutions and getting the RIAs out there pitching this stuff, you'll see more inflows, but it's just going to take longer than people think. As the banks make fees, they're going to do as much of this as they can. So I think there'll be an ETF in as many cryptos as possible. So right now, I still believe that we're in a bull market. There's going to be more money printing globally. And so my core bags of Bitcoin and ETH, I'm not selling. I might trade around the position a small bit by taking a tactical short here and there, but I'm long. And then in the altcoin portfolio at Maelstrom, we're obviously long only sort of investors. We will start liquidating things when it makes sense. But right now, we believe we're still in the early stages of the bull market.
So for how long this bull market may last in your opinion?
Maybe 2026, 2027 is my estimate, but who knows? If you bought Bitcoin in March of 2023 in the US banking crisis, you're up 3x. If you bought some new coin, altcoin or shitcoin that gets listed, maybe you're down 95%. So it really depends on what you purchase, but the aggregate value of all of crypto has still increased over the last 12 to 18 months. So I believe we're still in a bull market, but again, it depends on what you bought. I think it's interesting that a developing country like El Salvador has sort of broken away from the traditional advice that they're given on how to manage their country and gone with this Bitcoin approach. And so it's given an idea to other countries, hey, you don't have to follow what the IMF and the World Bank tell you. Here's an example of doing something different. Maybe it's better for your population not to follow these rules. So I think it's great. I think we'll see more sort of like less wealthy countries doing it because they've seen that over the last 50 or 60 years, the advice that they're given by the Americans and the Europeans is not good advice. It's not in their best interest. And so why not use a free currency owned by the world that's not controlled by Washington, D.C. or Brussels. If Bitcoin goes up in dollar terms, I agree with you. You just earn more fiat if you're just going to sell Bitcoin. But let's say that Bitcoin goes up massively versus oil or uranium or natural gas, then maybe if you've accumulated enough Bitcoin, you can actually go and buy a power plant on the cheap. I don't know. I believe we can get to $1 million end of the cycle, $1 million.
So why do you believe that we can see like over 10x?
Because the amount of money that's going to be printed is going to be absolutely insane, as every government around the world does the same thing, which is print money to make my people feel happy because the global growth is slowing. I think that we're in a transition period of a global financial system. We're going to change it. The elites will resist the change, which means they're going to print a lot of money, more money than ever that's ever been printed, because they don't want the post-World War II U.S. Hegemony to change. And that's why I believe. And I think now is the time for this to happen.
What do we need for the mass adoption of crypto?
Culture. So we need things like ordinals, we need things like NFTs, we need celebrities launching meme coins. That's how the average person gets into crypto.
Why are you bullish on it? Why do you see the value in ordinals?
Because it's actually on-chain. It's a scarce digital artifact, as opposed to most NFTs, say Ethereum for that matter, because they're just pointing to a database that's centralized. So that's why I like ordinals. It speaks to the Bitcoin ethos, and it's the biggest ecosystem on which to launch something.